very low number of soft tissue issues in the past 5 years. I do think part of that goes into some of the things we've done, but it's never going to be a total band-aid. You're not going to stop all of it, but you can do some things to mitigate your soft tissue injuries as best you can. 3 is going to be improved recovery. This always happens like the first couple weeks I get kids in class. They'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sore, I can barely walk, okay? Once we get going into the rest of the semester, we give them volumes very similar to that we were doing at the beginning, and then they can recover very quickly, okay? So when that happens, that allows them to bounce back also from their sport. The more well-conditioned you can be, the higher volumes you can have. Okay, so if you take a kid that's not very well trained, you have them go play a basketball game, go play a hockey game, that's going to take them out for maybe a day, maybe even the next day. Those kids that are a little bit more well trained, they can bounce back a little bit faster, and then in turn have a really good training session or practice that next day. Okay, one that I think is very underrated when we're talking about why we do it. And the fourth thing, is just confidence, and especially at the high school level, man. If you get a group of guys that believe they can do it just by looking in the mirror, I mean, we'll put in bicep curls and triceps in our workouts, and I love it when the kids go and look at themselves in the mirror, okay? That's how we get a hook, line, and sinker. I want them to feel good leaving the weight room and like they are making themselves better and a better player, okay? So this is actually the first thing we talk about with my weight training classes today, okay? Going on to just some general guidelines. Again, these are just things that we use in our program. Technique's always more important than load. I'm sure it's something you guys have heard a million times, but it rings true, okay? Especially when you're dealing with 14 and 15-year-old kids, you really need to evaluate if you can put that kid under, a heavy load when they don't have the prerequisite skill to do that. Okay? Maxing out can be a real hot button issue. If you want to do it, great. Just make sure it's in a very safe and controlled environment. You cannot have injuries in the weight room. We're in the weight room to make sure that we're getting kids better for their sport. Just absolutely cannot happen. Technique's got to be more important than load. Number 2, progressive overload. There's got to be some sort of plan where you're making things progressively harder. So when we look at progressive overload, these are some things that you can do to progressive overload workouts. Okay, talking sets first. Do 2 sets 1 week. Next week we can go to 3. Okay, going to reps. 1 week we did 135 on the bench press for 5 reps. Go to 6, then 7 the following week. You got to keep putting stress on your body. 3, intensity. This is the one that kids always like to use. Okay, so we did 3 sets of 5 on the bench, 135. Okay, next week let's go to 140 for 5. Then let's go to 155 for 5. There has to be something that adds more stress to the body. And it doesn't need to be these big 30, 40, 50 pound jumps. You got to think, if you got a kid that's 14 years old training as a freshman, you had 2.5 pounds on whatever it is lift that you want to talk about, man, that kid's going to make a lot of progress throughout their high school. Okay, you got to be intentional with that progressive overload. And then one that we started introducing a little bit more is time under tension. When you start looking at going down slow, pausing. A popular one that we're really using right now is push-ups. We'll do an eccentric push-up. We'll go down for 3 seconds 1 week. Then you go to a 4-second eccentric. All trying to increase what we call our time under tension and make exercises more difficult. Okay, and then sport specific. What exactly does that mean? Every time there's a new coach hired, they come and talk to me. Man, what are you going to do to make our kids? What do you do to make lifts sport specific? And I look them in the face and I say, well, what do you mean by sport specific? And they know a lot of times don't have a lot of answer. And the reason is high school athletes, 90% of them need the exact same things. They need to get stronger. They need to get bigger. They need to get more explosive, and they need to be able to run faster. Okay, so when we talk about sport-specific exercises, we're talking like some injury prevention things. A lot of what you do in your core lifts and your auxiliary lifts stay the exact same. And then if you're seeing some other isolated injuries by some specific sports, that's where that sport-specific term comes into play. Okay, and then data collection. I think we're at the point in high school strength and conditioning where it's not just enough to work hard. Okay, and especially in kind of the social media kind of wave of things, kids need to see progress. You need to track things. You need to track things like a vertical jump. You need to track things like the sprint speed. You need to show tangible evidence that what we are doing is working. Okay, because if you're not and you're just guessing, I think you're really missing the boat. And then one that we've kind of changed on even these past couple years, and it's kind of a tough pill to swallow, but doing hard things is important, but it can't be the premise of your entire program. Okay? What I mean by that is you can't bring a kid in and what I call it redlining. You can't have a kid go to failure on every single workout. You might be able to do it for a week, you might be able to do it for 2 weeks, but at some time and point, you will run that kid into the ground and you will start to see that negative impact on performance. Okay? You got to be smart about it. I'm not telling you not to do hard things, but it can't be every single time that they go into their workouts. Okay? Looking at programming when you're trying to select exercises, the first question you need to ask is, what can your facility handle? Great example of this, reverse hyper. Fantastic exercise. I love it. Okay? I got a weight training class of 52 kids and I got 2 reverse hypers. Would be very, very difficult for me to program that exercise and get it done effectively. Okay? Conversely, X bar deadlift, great exercise. If you got 3 of them and 40 kids in your class, it's not going to be able to get done. A lot of what we talk about in your programming of your exercises, you can't just take something from one person and then put it into your situation. They got different kids, they got different facilities, and they got different needs. Okay? So you got to look at what you have in your facility and what you can make work with your kids. Number 2, what can you effectively teach? Another great one I use for this, just talk about hex bar deadlift. I don't teach a straight bar deadlift very well. Okay? Is a straight bar deadlift a great exercise if you can do it? 100% absolutely. Okay? Instead, I'm better at teaching hex bar deadlift. That's what we teach. Same thing for a power clean versus hang clean. Power clean, we did it in college. I don't feel comfortable or super comfortable with a lot of those finer points of coaching that, but I can coach the heck out of a hang clean. So you're not going to see power cleaning in our programming, but I can teach a kid how to effectively hang clean, and that's why we do that. Not because I prefer one or the other, it's just what I'm better at. And a kid's going to get a lot more out of doing something really, really well as opposed to just something that you saw an NFL guy doing. Okay? Got to know what you're coaching. Okay? A lot of things work, just got to be consistent as well. Okay? Then we look at periodization. This just goes that there's got to be some sort of plan. Here's 3 very popular ones that you'll see: linear periodization, where you just follow like a high rep to a low rep to a lowish rep, and then really working on power. We've done some of that where you start like a 10 rep, then an 8, then a 6, and work your way down to a 4 or a 2. Triphasic is some of the tempo stuff. I'm sure you've seen some stuff on the internet if you follow any strength stuff on social media. A lot of rave about that. And then undulating periodization, that's something that we can use with some of our more advanced kids. But like I said here, a lot of things work. Consistency is king. Okay? And if you are going to hang your hat on something, you got to actually see some of those results through. You can't see, oh, I want to do this for one block, then go and do something else. You got to see some of those results through and kind of know what you're coaching. Okay? Training goals guidelines. So just to give you a rough idea of what you're trying to change. So when we say the word hypertrophy, what we're trying to train is making a bigger athlete. Okay, so think of the 3 to 6 rep range, or 3 to 6 sets for that 6 to 12 rep range, about 60 to 85% of your max. Okay, when you're looking to train strength, you want stronger kids, you got to be in that 2 to 6 sets, 1 to 6 rep range. I put 70 plus. If you read it in a textbook, they'll probably tell you 80 to 85 plus. I'm telling you, with these young high school kids, they don't need those super high loads yet. Okay, there'll be a time when you can get there and then you can use them, but if you load a bar of 70% with your young kids and have them do it consistently, you will see strength gains. I can promise you that. Okay, and then when you're looking to train power, now we're looking at that 3 to 8 sets, 1 to 5 rep range, and you'll see there's a very diverse range where you're really trying to train bar speed. Okay, so when you're looking at your different programming and you're trying to hit different goals, whether that's through that linear periodization or you're undulating in different emphasis by day, these are some of the guidelines that you want to be looking for. Okay. Looking at some of our programming, so when you look at what we do in the weight room, honestly, this slide, I'd say probably covers 95 of what we do in the weight room. Okay? The first thing I want to highlight, total program, or total body. When we lift, we are typically on a 3-day-a-week schedule. We lift Monday, Wednesday, Friday with with a lot of our kids that are in class. Or if we have kids in class, then we'll lift 4 days a week and do some speed agility stuff on one. But I'll kind of show you some of those here shortly. Okay? Why I believe in total body. We're not going to be like a back and buys. We're not going to be legs. We're not going to be push-pull. I don't think that's great for training athletes. For what I put up there, athletes are competing. You can't have a kid that's going out and playing basketball and then saying, okay, well, we're going to do 4 sets of 10 on back squat, 4 sets of 6 on rear foot elevated split squat, and then 10 sets of whatever on your leg extensions. Okay, that kid won't be able to walk that next day. Okay? Instead of doing that, we just hit a lot of different body parts throughout the week, so we're still getting to that same volume just over the course of the week so kids can recover and actually be able to go out and produce in their sports. Okay? The other reason, as you have probably seen this winter, is, oh my gosh, I was looking at my calendar. I haven't had a 5-day week of school with kids since November. Okay, so when you look at starting to plan training blocks, yeah, I got push, pull, legs. What happens when you take one of those days out from PLD day or a snow day Do you just push everything back, or are you going to skip it all together and go to the next one? I do think there's just a lot of benefit to, hitting a couple different body parts a day, and really trying to grow that volume over the course of a semester and a week, not just on that one day. Okay? Looking at some of the things we do, we will do some cleaning. That's kind of been a hot button issue. Some people are saying it's hard to teach. I do think the juice is worth the squeeze. You got to spend a lot of time doing it. We don't power clean from the ground like I mentioned. We'll work on some 3-position clean just to kind of teach it. And then we will go into hand clean. We'll probably hand clean 2 times a week with all of our kids. One on more speed-based and one on more heavy-based. Looking at lower bilateral, so thinking 2 feet on the ground. We'll do a bunch of different squat patterns. We'll front squat, we'll back squat, we'll goblet squat with some of our beginners. We'll do some hex bar deadlift. We'll do RDLs. Looking at our lower unilateral, thinking just one limb. Lunge variations, all super good. Split squat variations, rear foot elevated, front foot elevated, split stance RDL, split stance RDL step-ups and single leg squat. That's actually something that's actually gone into our program a lot more, and I can kind of see us working away from some of the bilateral stuff and going to more of some of that unilateral, because I think, one, there's a lower barrier of training. If you've ever seen a kid try to back squat his first time, looks like a deer, but can't even get on his legs. Or if you can put a kid with some dumbbells in his hands, I think you can teach a kid to split squat in almost probably 2 or 3 minutes. So I think there's a lower barrier to entry, or lower training age entry to some of the unilateral stuff. Okay, then we will do some push exercises. We'll bench, we'll incline, we'll shoulder press, we'll push press, we'll do push-ups, we'll do all those with one arm, we'll do them with barbells, we'll do them with dumbbells, we'll do the whole shebang. Okay, then we'll talk about some of our pulls. Chin-ups, I think that's one of probably the best bang for your buck exercises. Every training block that we do will always incorporate pull-ups and chin-ups. I think being able to pull your body weight's important. Like, we'll get these kids, man, I bench 275 or I bench 315, and the follow-up question I ask them, how many chin-ups can you do? Like, that's great that you can do that, but can you move your body weight? Can you be effective with it? And I think those are 2 very, very important exercises for that. Row variations, we'll do a bunch of those. We'll do band rows, we'll do dumbbell rows, barbell bent over row. Rows are a fantastic tool for our toolbox, and we'll do that all one arm as well. Posterior chain, we'll get on some glute ham developers, GHDs. If I had inverse curls, who's got inverse curls in here? Anybody? You like them? Should we get them? I've heard a lot of really good things, but like I said, I just can't program them. Very good hamstring development. I'd like to get that. We play reverse hypers when we can. We'll get into some dumbbell swings, some slide board leg curling. This isn't necessarily to go through and teach all these exercises, but just more so a slide at what we do. Then you look at injury prevention. I was actually talking to my athletic trainer, and I was kind of running by, and he actually helps me quite a bit with some of the strength stuff, and I said, what do you think we should include in this? And he said, you got to put an injury prevention shout out in there. So that's something to mitigate some of those injuries. So when I said 90% of athletes need the exact same things, that's this, okay? The 10%, injury prevention. Soccer kid, have him do a plate push. He tells me that our hockey kids have more issues with their hips, so we'll do some banded marches, or we'll do some more bar over under things. Our basketball kids have issues with sprained ankles, so we'll do a lot of 4-way ankle stuff. They still do all that same stuff. The injury prevention is where we kind of make some of those changes. Looking at some of our speed, agility, and quickness. First thing that we do, max velocity sprinting. You could make an argument, going back to this previous slide, you could make an argument to take out any single exercise and you would probably be on something. I would argue that the most important part of any program would be maximum effort sprinting. And I'm sure you guys have heard of maybe some of the feed the cats and record, rank, publish, and all that stuff's really great. But really what they're after is just the absolute training effect. Okay? There's not anything that you can do in the weight room that can get you to use your glutes, hamstrings, calves in that manner than max velocity sprinting. Okay, so we'll sprint in a straight line. The sprinting curves, we'll work on running mechanics, and we'll do that. We'll try to do that twice a week. In our weight training classes, we'll only get a chance to do it once. In the summer, we'll do a variety of different sprints, probably 2 or 3 times a week. But I think that is one of the, if not the most important aspects of any program. Okay, working on acceleration, so that's when we're working short sprints, so that max velocity is when you're at that top speed. Acceleration is going to be how fast can you get from there to there in 5 yards instead of 25. We can do some resisted running to help with that, and then we'll push sleds in the summer as well. We don't have turf strips in our weight room, so it's hard to do some of that in the summer. Deceleration, just working on stopping. It's a skill. You got to practice it. You got to change direction. You got to give people situations where they can do it and learn it effectively. Change of direction and agility. Pro agility, would be more change of direction. So when we think change of direction versus agility, change of direction is that set pattern where I know where I'm going to go no matter what. Where agility is going to be, now there's a stimulus I got to react to. Okay, and we've started implementing some more games, and it might sound foolish, but kids love it. It's great for warm-up. It's great for some of that agility work. Just playing simple tag games. You know, like one of the ones we did last week, if this is our gym floor, I put a kid in the corner, put a kid in the corner, put a kid in the corner here, and a kid in the corner there. Okay, I just tell them, okay, you got 25 seconds or 20 seconds, whatever it was I said. You got a two-hand tag all three of these guys. If you don't get them in those 25 seconds, you owe us 10 push-ups. You know, and just something simple like that to give them something competitive. And the work you get from that, as opposed to just the put your foot in the ground and change direction, is night and day different. And it's very, very, very valuable. Jumping, vertical, broad, box jumps, loaded jumps, assisted jumps, single leg jumps. We try to do all of it. We test verticals every week. We test broad jumps every other week. We do some single leg stuff, and the loaded and assisted, all super good. Okay, landing, bilateral, teach kids to absorb some inertia, some single leg stuff, and then we'll also throw med balls as well. Okay, I'm going to try to get going a little bit quicker here because I know I got some stuff that I want to get through for you guys. Okay. Looking at KPIs and data collection. So KPIs, I call these our key performance indicators. So what do we look at? We talked about collecting data. These are all the things that I think are important for us to rank and record. Okay, flying 10s, long versus short. Okay, so when we're doing that long flying 10, that's going to be that max velocity we just talked about. That's an important metric. How fast can a kid go? That short flying 10 is going to be, now you don't have that long run in, now you just have that, you just got to get that 10 yards. And how do you compare between those two? Are you not very good in your acceleration? How can we make you run faster? Vertical jump. Like I said, every week, sometimes twice a week, we will record those. We've actually gotten quite a bit better at it. Body weight's one that we actually just started doing last year. One, it's really good for kids to kind of see their progress over time, but I also use it as a little bit of kind of an indicator. So if I got a kid that weighs 185 pounds regularly, and then he comes in, he weighs 175 on Monday, I can start a conversation. Hey, what's up with you? Are you okay? Oh no, coach, I was throwing up all weekend. I don't feel very good. Okay, I'm gonna have to modify his workout. I can't just put him through everything that we're having to do because he's not even close to where he needs to be. Broad jump, just jumping as far as you can. Forward jump, hands on hips. Looking to measure some power there, some pro agility. And then with kids I trust, I have conversations, I ask them how they feel. And then you'll see at the bottom here, I intentionally put this at the bottom because it's important, but not our most important metrics. And we do track maxes. You can see under it, the most important part of that is they're used to set our next training block. Okay, so I'm not necessarily concerned what your back squat max is or your bench max is. I just need that to be an accurate number for you to train off of for our next block. Okay. The other thing we'll use, the big one, flying 10 and vertical jumps. I like to do those every week as well because those are really good fatigue indicators for us as well. We did these every Monday and Wednesday during our season. And we would go as far to say if we were 5% off of our flying 10, or if we were 5% off of our best vertical, we changed volume for kids in practice. So we would have some conversations, and my coaches got pissed at me at the time because there was one day where we had all of our kids, all of our position groups were jumping just fine. Our offensive line came up and their verticals were horrible. Like some of them were down 3-4 inches, and as a lineman who's only got a 22-inch vertical to begin with, like that's a pretty significant difference. So I had to talk to my offensive line coach. I'm like, hey, what did these guys do yesterday? And they had a really tough practice. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, but you got to know we have to take some off of these guys tomorrow. Okay, we need to be fresh going into Friday, and because I saw those vertical jump numbers, that initiated that conversation. Otherwise, we would have just overloaded our kids and we would have been dog tired come Friday. Okay, but the caveat is kids got to do everything as hard as they can. It can't be a half-ass thing, and you gotta kind of do with kids that you can really trust. Okay, looking at our 5-day plan here. So this would be a non-class. You can see all the things that we talked about are going to be somewhat put in here. So we were doing hang clean 5x2, 1+1, so I can set the bar down 75%. Going to be working on some really good power development there. And then they went over and got a vertical jump. I love supersetting things. I like putting lifts with other lifts, supersetting them, because we can get through a little bit more. You can train opposing muscle groups, and it can be more efficient. And like when you have super big groups, you can really get going through it. Okay. Then we went into a heavy split squat day, 4x8. Going to be more of that hypertrophy focus. And then I give kids rep ranges because those the 1 rep maxes aren't always going to be super accurate, like they fluctuate on a day-to-day basis. The kid feels really, really good, it's going to be up a touch. Kid's not feeling the best, it's going to be down a little bit, okay? So I like to give rep ranges for kids to work through, but those aren't numbers that are always set in stone. Those move with how kids feel, okay? Then we went into some of our eccentric chin-ups in our bench where we're going down for a 4-second. So as you could probably guess, we did 4-second down on the first day. Next week we probably did 5 seconds, then we probably went to 6 to get to that progression. Okay? On our next day, we did, looks like some sort of speed and agility day, and that's when we were working on more of some acceleration with some of our sprint mechanics, banded mechanics to get some of that forward lean, horizontal projection. Then we did some plyometrics with some depth drops. Then we went into some more power-based workouts, some med ball throws, very similar to a hang clean, then into a broad jump. Went to a light hex, 5 sets of 2 at 70%. Again, really looking for bar speed. This was a very force-dominant day where we wanted bars really smoking and weight moving really fast. And then we finished with kind of a heavy day. So you can kind of see we wave our intensity. So we were very intense here, pretty low intensity, and then back to a high intensity to give them a weekend to recover. When you look at our class, we actually go for 4 days lifting a week, and this would be the one time I'd advocate if you wanted to do a little bit more of an upper-lower split, you could. As you can see here, we'll still do essentially all the same exercises, but we have more of a lower body emphasis here, more of an upper body emphasis here, because I want us to be fresh for our flying tens and our burpees, and then we put both of our heavy days at the end of the week so they can recover all weekend. Okay, so then we went our heavy incline bench, and then we went our heavy split squat at the end of the week to give kids the weekend, and then we hypothetically should be getting our best sprint times going through that as well. Okay, I got 5 minutes here, so we're fresh. Okay. Software, what we use in our weight room. So there's a lot of different things you can use to deliver workouts. This is just a quick picture I took of our weight room action today. We have these little tablets. We don't have enough money to buy iPads. We had to buy these little Lenovo Fire tablets that kind of suck, and they were $70 on Amazon. But we have one of those at every single rack. Okay. So we, like I said, we use Team Builder, and I've actually fielded quite a few questions on Team Builder, and that's going to be kind of outside the scope of this presentation. But if you have questions on it and how we use it, I'd be more than willing to help you. But really, what we use it for is workout delivery. We use it for data tracking, so that's where we'll put all of our information, our sprints, our flying tens. I'll run reports, and then I can see that based on group, sport, football, class, whatever it might be, in season, out of season. And then that allows me to have multiple calendars, so I can do some slightly different things with some different populations as well. I know it's a really quick slide, but like I said, if you got questions on how we use Team Builder, I'd love to help you on that as well. Okay. In-season training, I think it's important to touch on this because you can't train an in-season kid the same as an out-of-season kid. You can maybe with some of the younger kids, but when you got some of those varsity kids, you can't have them going and doing back squat 4 sets of 10 and be like, oh yeah, by the way, tomorrow you're playing Hudson. That's not going to go good. You're going to lose those kids. Your basketball coach is going to get pissed at you. So you got to find a way to make sure that you're still making gains in your season while still respecting the season of the sports. Okay, so I think this first line is very telling. Performance is the most important part. Training fits around the sport, not the other way around. Let me say it again. Training fits around that sport, not the other way around. Okay, our hockey kids are playing 3 games a week right now from all the cancellations. Do I wish they were in there more, training with me Monday, Wednesday, Friday? Absolutely. Okay, I also understand that when we're playing away games, they're getting home at midnight, then they got to study for finals, and then they got to go to practice the next day. The chance of us getting productive work done with them to begin with is not going to be super high. Now I know those kids, I got some of them in class, and I'm still getting some of them, but you also got to be realistic in some of your expectations as well, and understand we're not training to train, we're training to be better at our sport. And whether it's football, basketball, whatever it might be, kids care about other things than just football. Okay? Must control soreness with volume, and we really just use this with our varsity kids. We beat up our lower kids a little bit more. Okay? So the example I want to give you is a volume example. So let's say we got a back squat max of 315. We prescribe 2 exercises, 3 sets of 6 at 65%, which would be 205 pounds in the bar, or 4 sets of 2 at 85% and 270 pounds. Which one do you think would provide more muscle soreness for a kid? Okay, so let's do the math. 205 pounds by 6, you'd be lifting 1,230 pounds per set. 270 by 2, 540 pounds per set. Okay? So you take your pounds times the total number set, 1230 times 3, that's 3,690 pounds. You take your 540 times 4, you're actually only lifting 2,160 pounds. Okay? So when you're training kids, get out of your head the idea that you cannot train heavy in season. It's actually just the exact opposite. You shouldn't have kids being going over 5 or 4 reps, I don't think. You can kill, you can still train hard, you can train with great intensity, but it's got to be done smart and at low volumes to make sure, one, they're still feeling okay, and then two, that they are still ready, or they're still making some progress in whatever sport that they're in. Okay? So that just kind of explains that. That's kind of an eye-opening one for a lot of people as well. Okay? So you still got to train heavy. Closing thoughts, consistency is king. You got to train year-round. The progress you can make with, you know, the 14-year-old kid that trains steadily for 4 straight years, and you add 2.5 pounds every single week, you're going to be really, really good, and you're going to be tough to beat. Okay, it's the kids that are sporadic and, you know, take seasons off. That's when you can kind of get yourself in trouble. Okay. 2, practice what you preach. And my caveat is here: be careful about out-of-season demands. I put that in out-of-season because I don't know if your schools are similar to mine. I feel like I never have an out-of-season kid. We're always in basketball, or every football kid goes and plays basketball or hockey or track, whatever it might be, and they're always varsity kids. Okay? I can't demand that they're there 4 days a week if I want to have them in season. If I'm not going to ask a kid to, you know, hang clean 565 at 85% before a football game, I'm sure it's not going to do it before a basketball game. If I'm not going to ask a kid to back squat 4 by 10, you know, at 75%, why on earth would I do that to a kid before a basketball game? Okay? And when you do that, and you start to have these conversations, I think you build more trust, and then that essentially just grows your entire program because you're showing you don't, not only do you not just care about football, you want to help them succeed in their other sports, and I think it inversely creates, a better overall program for yourself as well. Okay? Social media, your greatest tool and your enemy. Okay, I got about 2 minutes here. I'm going to fly through these last couple. If you got Twitter, if you got Facebook, or whatever it might be, there's a lot of really good things on there. And I'd be lying to you if I said I don't pull a lot of stuff from there, but you got to be careful. Okay, because as soon as you see one thing, I always, talking to our athletic trainer, as soon as you add something to your program, you always got to take something out. Okay, it's always got to be a one-to-one. It's hard to add things. So if you're going to add something, you better make dang sure what you're taking out is going to be something that you're okay doing, and you can't just be flavor of the week and change things all the time. There's got to be some consistency to what you're doing, and there's got to be some periodization and a plan of your attack. Okay, and doing simple things really, really well can create a lot of really good results. Okay, build your own house. You're not going to get a program from me. I mean, I can talk you through, I showed you what we do, I showed you a sample week, but I don't think this is beneficial if I just sit up here and give you an 8-week thing. 1, our kids are different. 2, our facilities are different. 3, my knowledge and my coaching abilities are different than what you have. You guys are probably better at some things than I am. You can coach things a little bit different, and we can have some of those conversations, but you've got to do what's best for your kids in your specific situation and your demands. It's going to be different than Richmond. It's going to be different than wherever else that you might be. With that being said, I love talking strength and conditioning. I kind of joke about it. I was a football coach that happened to run the weight room. It almost feels like I'm a strength coach that happens to coach football because I love studying some of this stuff. I have a lot of fun with it. So if you ever want to get in contact with me, my cell phone number is right there. There's my email. If you want to follow me on Twitter, there's my app as well. And I think we're right on schedule. So I appreciate you guys having me on to speak.
Guys, we have about 10 minutes before our next session.
Great job, Coach.
All right, fellas, we're going to get going again here. Time issues, you know. All right, guys, one reminder, there are t-shirts, they're on that first little bar there. If you haven't picked one up before the end of the night. And secondly, I want to introduce Phil Nicolaitis, head coach of Greg McAllister, a couple years into the MIAC now with a new conference and new staff. So, Coach, thanks for coming over. Appreciate it. And floor's all yours.